The head of one of the most powerful teachers' unions is in the hot seat. Randi Weingarten refusing to apologize over devastating school shutdowns during the pandemic. Half of America's students are behind an entire academic year because of those closures. Republicans demanding answers over emails showing the teachers' union helped coordinate the CDC's school reopening guidance. Weingarten admitting she worked with the agency, but claims her role is being way blown out of proportion.
To summarize, AFT was provided with a full draft copy of the guidance 2 weeks before publication, suggested line-by-line edits.
No, we did not, sir.
We
did not suggest line-by-line edits to the document.
Well, do you remember how many edits that you suggested?
We suggested concepts, sir.
Do you know how many edits were included?
One.
It's unusual for a political union to have such a role in scientific guidance process, and hopefully we can find more answers.
Weingarten also forced to admit that she had a direct line to CDC Director Rochelle Walensky.
I'm a member of Congress that sits on 2 committees that deal with this, the CDC. I don't have a direct number to Director Walensky. Do you?
Do I have Director Walensky's direct number?
Yes.
Yes, I have Director Walensky's direct number.
Well, hopefully she'll give it to me too.
The school lockdown fallout does not end there. Dr. Fauci is also brushing off any responsibility for shutdowns, telling the New York Times, quote, "Show me a school that I shut down and show me a factory that I shut down. Never I did. Never. I gave a public health recommendation that echoed the CDC's recommendation, and people made a decision based on that." So a lot of things coming out today, Judge. We do know that the CDC wanted to open schools. Rochelle Walensky from the CDC said she wanted to reopen schools. And all of a sudden, she was admonished, and they said, even though she was speaking in front of the CDC backdrop, that she was actually speaking in her personal capacity.
Yes.
Later on, we find out that these emails had exchanged. So they're kind of quibbling over split hairs here.
Yeah. Well, they're quibbling because they have nothing else to do in terms of defending themselves. Look, not Rachel Walensky, Randi Weingarten, this is a woman who actually went to the Ukraine to assess the evaluation of the damage to education from the Russian war. She was more concerned about the kids in Ukraine than she seems or appeared to have been about the kids in the United States, who suffered the greatest loss in educational learning since the beginning of the 19th century in America. There is no question that what happened to our children was a devastating thing in terms of as they grow up, as they compete in this world. They will be at a loss compared to other countries. Now, you know, she can say, Randi Weingarten, and that, you know, it was all about protecting the kids. That's hogwash. She wanted a metric so that as soon as a teacher might be ill, they would shut down the schools. It wasn't about the kids, it was about the teachers. And they resisted the effort on the part of parents to take their children and the money to a school that was open. And make no mistake, there were schools that were open, the Catholic schools, the charter schools. There were all kinds of schools. But these were her decision and her working with the CDC, as they indicated, having the private number of Rachel Walensky, who said it's safe enough to open. And then, of course, she got slapped down.
And they backed down. And Randi Weingarten had lobbied very successfully for federal taxpayer dollars to go to all of the schools, which then were never actually spent. They're just sitting there, waiting for more.
And think about what does the UFT and the AFT do with their money? They give money to political parties,
absolutely,
mostly the Democrat Party. So while they are taking that money and collecting it for COVID, our kids are not in school, and the teachers would not agree to teach in the summertime so that kids could get at least a jump up.
Meanwhile, Dr. Fauci was on CNN. Here he is. Call for number 2.
It was a personification of me as a person who essentially closed everything down. Those were public health recommendations that came from the CDC. But the initial decision early on in the middle of that crisis, I believe, was the right decision. How long you kept them closed really varied depending upon the locale.
I know you have a little one. She's not of school age, of course, but you have a lot of friends who do have friends that have kids in school, and even they were saying this is out of control.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk a lot about the exodus from liberal cities or liberal states to more conservative states because of lower taxes, but a principal reason for that was schools, that people wanted to go to a place where their kids would have the next 2 years of school. And some people are coming back, and some people have decided that they want to stay there. And obviously all sorts of factors that go into why you want to remain in a place, but it was a part of that conversation. And something that Randi Weingarten said that I think is important, though, this is about the teachers, right? The kids are important, we're educating them, but if she had teachers who said, we are not going back into the classroom, what was she going to do? And I think that it comes back to, and we talk about this a lot, the fact that we were just not being told honestly what was going on. And this was from the start, the conversations about masks, because they didn't want people to go out and buy all of the masks, that we didn't have them for the doctors and people who were essential workers. Yep. I thought that was the right call, but we were continually told something else and diverted our attention to this place when it should have been a more open and honest conversation with adults about the information that we have. And I think that's what people hold against Randi Weingarten or what they hold against Dr. Fauci. And if you treat adults like adults, then everyone can make their own decisions.
Well, including that if they told us that we needed to leave the masks for the doctors and the nurses, I think that we all would have done that.
Most people would have.
So that would not have been a problem. Greg, President Biden also weighed in on kids today, or yesterday. Listen here.
Kids.
There's no such thing as someone else's child. No such thing as someone else's child. Our nation's children are all our children.
Are they?
I think that's so moving. I really do. But you missed the second part. He says, there's no such thing as someone else's child. We cut it off right before he said, unless it's my granddaughter.
Oh, the
who's the baby, who's the baby of a stripper, that all bets are off.
Right.
He shouldn't be lecturing anybody. He's a hypocritical old fart. That hearing is about accountability. And it's important because what went missing was accountability. When the government and the tech industries, the media, and corporations all went in on one side, you realize that anything goes. 2 weeks to flatten the curve became 2 years. Mm-hmm. You could extort people on vaccines or on masks by using their livelihood where they worked. And even if where you worked, the people didn't like that, they had to do it because they had the thumb on them from above. What did the media do? Well, they led the charge by smearing anybody who was anti-lockdown or vax skeptical as a danger to America. They did what kind of hawks would do to the anti-war movement, which is they would paint you as a threat to security just for voicing any kind of opposition or saying, hey, maybe we're going too far. And the consequences, we kind of hit on them. The shutdowns have correlated with multiple consequences: suicides, overdoses, dysmorphias. I mean, you wonder why so many kids are confused about who they are. Well, leave them alone in a room with a TikTok influencer instead of a teacher. Gary is going to turn into Glenda. You just hope it turns back. And then, and obviously the shutdowns turned into dramatic upticks in traffic fatalities. It's another thing that we don't talk about. Closed thousands of businesses. It killed thousands of people needlessly because being outside and being active would reduce your reliance on drugs and alcohol. I mean, if we were a country and COVID was a country we are at war with, Randi Weingarten would be tried as a war criminal.
No.
That's a hypothetical.
Absolutely.
She's not really a war criminal.
Charlie,
No.
take all of
She
these
has the hair
things as
for it.
you do and analyze from your perch.
So I think that statement from Joe Biden is really creepy. Of course, the idea that people don't have, it's sort of like saying the quiet part out loud about socialism. Because of course, what is socialism? Socialism believes that people, that people don't have any relationships except to government. You don't have a family. You don't have parents. You don't have children. Everything goes directly to the government, which is a really frightening, terrifying thing that usually politicians don't come out and say. But going back to what you said, Jessica, isn't that the whole problem with the teachers' unions? Is that the decisions that they're making are about the best interest of the teachers and not what's in the best interest of the children. And so they were completely obsessed with the idea that teachers wouldn't show up. That's crazy. And by the way, I know a lot of teachers who were concerned about COVID, but they would never, ever place themselves ahead of the interests of the children. And so I think, and then if that is the position of the teachers' unions, then why do the teachers' unions have this kind of power in government to write the regulations about going back to school or anything else for that matter? They shouldn't be allowed to have any authority at all.
So if I was misunderstood in that they didn't care about kids at all, I certainly didn't mean to intimate that. I just meant that her job was a lot more difficult than I think people are making it out to be. They're just saying that she's, sits alone in a room and says, we'd rather sit inside and be on Zoom all day, which is not what happened. She had thousands of people telling her that they had pre-existing conditions. They were scared about this. They remember the desks 6 feet
even
apart.
when they got vaccines first, remember in Fairfax County, they didn't go back to school.
And by the way, of all the emails that they found, there was nothing about how to keep the schools open. It was never about the kids. It was about the teachers.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.